night tonight, unlike last year's, and I'd like you all to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and please be seated. Well, this is the last time I will address you as your mayor. My term ends this year as the term limits in our charter ends my service at the time of our November election. So before I start my address, I want all of you to know what a privilege and honor it's been to serve as our city's mayor. It is my hope that in some way, my service has helped you and all of our residents once again have trust in our government. You know, I hesitated writing this, whether to begin with our financial data. The CFO thinks it's riveting, but he's a cult of one. And however, given the distress we were once having, I want to go over what I believe is very good news. I know it may be boring, but please bear with me. For the fourth consecutive year, we ended with an unqualified credit rating by our auditors, Plant Moran. This is the highest rating a city may get in its audit. And next month, we are starting a review with Standard & Poor's, and we hope to receive a credit increase from BBB+ to at least an A rating, which is considered an investment grade rating. And this means that any future financing that the city might have, it could do it with a much lower interest rate and a much wider group of people that would be purchasing whatever debt instruments we might be issuing. So what are the more significant savings in capital expenditures over the current fiscal year? The city debt millage is reduced by 1.549 mils, or about $1,161,000 less taxes assessed against our taxpayers this past year. We finished with a streetlight replacement program over these past 3 years, which led to an annual savings of $138,000 per year. In addition, we purchased LED lights for the library, as well as the parking lot, and redid its parking surface. We expect good savings on these new lights. Probably our most significant capital expenditure and most visible is this City Hall and Police Station, built for cash and land at a cost of $8.1 million. Estimates for an entirely new facility that we had looked at doing was $12.1 million, and if we used the old City Hall property, it would have cost us $500,000 more for infrastructure. Plus, that property we sold for approximately $650,000 more than the property we purchased here. In addition, we are updating, modernizing all city computers, mainframes, office equipment, and software. Unfortunately, I don't know that any of that's going to help me. As people know, I'm not the most technically proficient person. We bid and implemented a 6-year trash collection contract with Advanced Disposal that saved over $100,000 per year, and we received without additional charge 96-gallon trash and 65-gallon recycled cans for each household. And one of our largest savings was getting bondholders to turn in their bonds on the Southfield lease property. About $17.5 million of the bonds were tendered, and we refinanced the bonds, saving about $500,000 per year in interest through 2039. We are averaging over $3.5 million annually in road improvements. In addition, this year, we did $1,085,000 in water main upgrades, $200,000 in sewer linings, and $400,000 for pump station improvements. As you know, water and sewer, we don't see them only when they break, and then they're a major problem. I did, in getting ready for these remarks, got a list of all our water lines, and approximately a third of our water lines were placed in service before 1930. And about another 50% probably before 1955. Particularly the 1930 and earlier lines are really subject to issues, and we are going forward as we do roads to try and fix our water lines and also our sewers. We purchased a new fire truck and sewer vector at costs of $675,000 and $340,000 respectively, and we have a 3-year contract with America to pay for these items, and they'll be paid off in the next fiscal year of the city. In addition, over the past 3 years, our 5-year capital improvement plan has been updated every year, leading to better cash flow, cash management for our city. Capital expenditures have totaled $7,700,000 from this fund. Also, we keep a 5-year budget for the general fund as well as all other funds, water, sewer, library, etc. Our administrator and department heads have really worked hard to bring us back from the brink of a real financial ruin to where we stand today. We've just ended arbitration with our fire department. The decision is expected later next month and may have effect on this 2018-19 fund balance. These negotiations have been going on since July 1st of 2016. We anticipate a surplus of about $73,000 before any arbitration award is charged to the general fund. With 3 years of wage increases, which will be similar to what the other 3 unions who have settled contracts will be paying a similar amount of $2,500 a year, or about $190,000 for the 3-year period, and that will reduce this year's general fund surplus and actually put us into a small negative balance, but we'll end the year with a surplus for the general fund of $4,563,580 after the wage increases are added to the budget. I do want to say something about the trend, which is having a similar impact on many Michigan municipalities and school districts. The Headley Amendment and Proposition A really restrict the increases that we can levy as a taxing authority, since most communities had taxable values drop over 35% in 2008-9, similar to what happened in Allen Park. Most have only recovered, as we have, about 12% of that 35% loss. When these constitutional limitations passed, no one considered substantial decline in property values. Allen Park has increased its millages due to the vote of its citizens, and because it hadn't levied all a city could levy under state law, which is 20 mills, we were able to recoup, balance our budgets, and go forward. A little over the 50% of our revenue does come from property taxes, and the other large areas, revenue sharing, court fee, a couple other matters, are essentially flat year to year. So the only place that we can see increased revenues to meet increased costs, generally the expenses of employment contracts, is our property taxes. And so the state's going to have to address this because too many of us are having that problem. And there's just, I don't see any way out. We have an estimate from Plant Moran that we won't have a valuation of our property in Allen Park until, be back to 2008 until about 2032. So just think, we can only move at the rate of the consumer price index, which has been moving. For us as citizens, it's been moving at a very low rate, which means the cost of our goods and services have stayed low. But from the taxing power of the community, it's been a very big struggle to balance all of our expenditures and maintain the services that we've all come to expect. And excuse me one moment, lost my place here. during the period of 2013 to 15, we had no raises by employee groups, and appointed officials had 10% cuts in all their wages, and the employees had to pick up about 20% of the cost of their health care. So they went through 3 years with either losses or a very flat source of income from our city. And so in the last 3 years, we've given to those employment units that we've settled with 2.5% annual raises, and we have put in our arbitration. We've agreed that we would pay the fire department 2.5%. Obviously, they've claimed something different. We'll just have to see what the arbitrators come down, and it is binding arbitration. So it is an issue, because about the last 3 years, average consumer price index has been moving at really less than 2%. And so you have a compression of revenue not going forward as quickly as employees' wages are. And wages for our employees are about 80% of the cost of running our city. And these other funds that we get from property taxes are 50 to 60% of the revenue. So it becomes an issue when you go into that. And as you can see, it took us 3 years to get to a completion of the arbitration, and now we're awaiting on that. And I think, I've talked to the city administrator and the chief financial officer, and I think we all agree that one of the things that we had was the emergency manager negotiated contracts, and her goal is to get 2 years balanced budget, and that's all that's required under the emergency manager law. But I think one of the things it did, as she imposed all kinds of conditions on the labor groups, it really created a breach of trust. So in this negotiations with the fire department, I think part of it is there's just a big hangover, or was a big hangover, that there was little trust by the employees as to what the city was trying to accomplish. So I am hoping there's no severe economic downturn in which property values get negatively impacted, because there's really going to be new sources of revenue that are going to be available. And we need some changes in Headley and Prop A, where the new sources of revenue our state has to seriously look at it. In fact, when the citizens voted on Prop A and Headley, the next year the state legislature came out with an even more serious restriction in Prop A that made it even more difficult to recover valuations, so that we could continue to generate the revenue necessary to meet the obligations that a city has. In Allen Park this year, during the budget review for the 2019-20, beginning June or July 1st of 19 will be the beginning of our new year, we're going to look at what we can do to protect the city in future downturns with our existing tax system. All we can deal with are the things that are in our control in the city. And there are a number of things, and I know the council and our advisors will look at all of them to see what's the best way that we can develop this next year's budget and maybe the next several years' budgets. So I know that was really enthralling material for all of you. I'm an old tax guy and banker, so I do kind of love numbers too, so maybe the two things that the CFO and I have in common. But I'd like to go through and tell you about what the departments have done in 18 and what they've told me that they hope they can accomplish for the departments in 19. I'll start with the police department, which is our largest department. They added 2 new officers in 2018, and last Tuesday night they added a third officer. So now the force from patrol to chief is 43. The FBI has recommended for a city our size and in a large metropolitan area that there should be a total force patrol to chief of about 45. But between budget constraints and now finding qualified officers has become more difficult. And I do commend our chief on his hard work. He now goes to the police academies while the students are still taking classes to try to get them to sign up to come to Allen Park. So, and we're advertising more, and at one time we used to always have a roll of 100 people that wanted to come to work in the police department or the fire department. If we can get 4 or 5 people on that roll, we're almost ecstatic today. The department has continued its community policing concepts with its Cop on a Block program, extra eyes, and a social media presence. In 2018, for the first time, they had a national night, which was throughout the country, and at Allen Park's District Court and the new police station, we had 1,000 people attend the event. The department has increased its training in 2018, adding more in-service training for patrol officers, investigators, and supervisors. Detective Sergeant, I don't know, somewhere a name escaped me as the sergeant whose name here is gone, but graduated from EMU's School of Police Staff and Command. Forgive me, Sergeant. The school focuses on training future leaders of police departments. The department has ordered 2 new Ford Explorer police packages for the fleet, and these are paid out of the drug forfeiture funds that we receive every year. Our fleet has essentially been paid for from these funds for 20 years. Most metropolitan police forces fund their fleet in this manner, and there are bills currently in both houses of the Michigan legislature which essentially wish to stop this source of funds. They want us to not have a forfeiture of these matters in a civil court until a conviction of the defendant has occurred in the criminal court. Well, one of the reasons this has been a successful program for the communities are you're going to go to jail if you come back and show up. So losing the car or whatever it is that was confiscated is a lot less onerous than going to jail for several years. So they don't show up. So if you wait for a conviction, whatever you're holding is just going to keep piling up somewhere, and you're not going to be able to dispose of it. It just doesn't seem to me. This has come up before, it's been voted down, but it's now in both houses, which is the first time that I remember that both houses have a bill. So if you agree that you like the forfeiture funds paying for our police cars, please talk to our legislators. In 2019, the department looks forward to providing continued excellent service and will establish an in-car and body-worn camera program for patrol. You know, at first I was a little skeptical about the camera programs, but then in the communities that have it, the thing that's nice is that we resolve the matters in less than a month. And I have to say, from the statistics, well over 95% of the resolution is in favor of the city and its police force. So time when you're reviewing these things and people are suing costs us money. So this faster resolution will give people, I think, more confidence in police forces, and it will reduce the cost to the municipalities. So I think it's a win-win for the city. Our second largest department is fire, with 24 personnel. Capital improvements were a new pumper truck replacing a 30-year-old one that we ended up selling for a small amount of money. The fire station got new overhead doors, new windows, and will be replacing entry doors and new electronic locks for security. The building itself is 46 years old, and with some of its heating elements, about 80 years old. The department continues to offer its Knox Box program to Allen Park seniors and for a cost to commercial entities. Check our website or call 313-928-0024 for more specific information. These boxes are established outside of our buildings to allow the department to enter if there is an emergency that they have to respond to. The department has fire safety assemblies in elementary schools and makes special appearances upon request to instruct our children on fire safety. The department held its 11th open house for over 500 people, providing activities for children as well as fire demonstrations. And I guess if you haven't been to one, you've missed seeing the jaws of life really work as they tear a car apart so they can get in and rescue people. Really is something to see. The third annual pancake breakfast saw 750 people, which provided from the proceeds of that breakfast 30 Christmas dinners to be given to 30 needy families, as well as providing money for 3 other families in need. The fire department provided first aid station at our street fair, as well as participating in the lighted Christmas and Memorial Day parades. Training is essential to all our departments. Fire personnel averaged 315 hours of training per person this past year, ranging from cardiology, pharmacology, fire behavior, and vehicle extraction. Even the fire department loves those jaws of life. They got it 2 places they gave me the information. Sergeant McLaren attended 80 hours of training in fire investigation through the Michigan State Police, and Lieutenant O'Reilly graduated from the Executive Fire Officer program at Eastern Michigan University. We have 5 department members serving in the Downriver Mutual Aid on the special teams that mutual aid puts out so that we can provide service to a community rather than all of us duplicating those services, which hopefully we don't have to use too often. The chief continues to seek grants to lower the cost burden to taxpayers, and over the last 10 years has obtained over $6 million. I want to thank the chief and congratulate him on his success and his grant applications. Just a short synopsis of the fire callouts. There have been 4,155 calls for service in 1918, 3,345 EMS responses, and 810 for fire, vehicle accidents, and hazardous conditions. 187 calls support our neighboring communities, as well as we made 53 calls for support to us. The Department of Public Service, our third largest department, has 16 personnel that has the responsibility for maintaining our roads, street lighting, and water and sewers. Just the Saturday before last, while many of us watched AFL and NFL overtime football championships, the department personnel salted our roads and serviced 7 water main breaks that evening. Many of them worked 24 hours straight. We really do have a dedicated department who does extraordinary work. 2018 saw them install 1.5 miles of water lines. They also lined or replaced 400 linear feet of sewers. They rebuilt the Quant sewer lift station, installed 3 new sanitary pumps at our retention basin, and started a residential cross-connection program. I see the director of DPS back there. I'm not certain what the last program of cross-connections is, but maybe you can ask Mr. Murray at the end of the program. We'll all learn something. 218 road work was 1/2 mile of new roads and sewer for Park, McLean, and Colonial Court streets from the citizens that provided those almost 2 mills for the streets. 2,000 feet of new road and patching used from Act 51, which are gas tax funds, for Reek, Wick, and more. Seal coating and restriping Park Avenue from Allen Road to Regina, striping Ecorse Road, and joint sealing over 77,000 feet of street between Outer Drive and Southfield. Whenever we fix our roads, one of the things for maintenance is keeping them sealed to prevent water from getting in. And it's a big problem because if it freezes in there, it just breaks apart our concrete and limits its life. 2019 will see similar water line improvements as well as sewers, 4 pressure reducing valves to our water system. These are badly needed, and hopefully it will help reduce summer water line breaks when pressure spikes occur because of heavier water usage. Road work will continue with similar distance of roads and sewers being repaired and joints sealed with the road millage and Act 51 funds. Streets to be improved, we believe, will be Park Avenue from Leslie to Astor at $920,000, and McLean from Park Avenue to Rosedale at $1 million for the street and $730,000 for the water line. Our building department is run by a community development director, part-time contract city planner from Carlisle and Workman, as well as a state licensed inspector and 3 ordinance officials. As to the last 3 persons, their job is to get landowners to abide by state building codes and city ordinances. Our goal is compliance. We don't want to issue fines or to limit use of your property by denying occupancy permits. It costs us money, even if the court finds a property owner or lessor. Our purpose is to make certain that every structure and area is safe and hopefully well-maintained and attractive. If we maintain these goals, then our city will be attractive to those of us who live and work here, and hopefully will attract others to come live, work, and play here. The department issued in 2018 2,864 permits while performing 4,578 inspections as a result of those permits. It performed 157 new rental inspections and 227 re-inspections of rental properties. It issued 42 certificates of occupancy and performed 93 inspections for those certificates. While doing so, it did site plan approvals for the new Chick-fil-A, Del Taco, former Wendy's, that was the former Wendy's, it's the Arby's tear down and rebuild, and this time they got it right. The drive-through will be on the correct side. The truck stop is being opened at the old Allen Park Bar. Time Equities is building a 125,000 square foot office and warehouse on Enterprise Drive, and we had a small fitness center. In 2019, the department will inspect and approve the Marriott Hotel and retail development on the old City Hall property, the new Ford Wind Tunnel and Battery Lab, the finishing of the Chick-fil-A, and the Time Equities projects. The next department is our Parks and Rec, which has made a wonderful recovery under the management of our director, Pat Hawkins, and a new full-time manager of operations and facilities. Our director and deputy went on a SEMCOG, Southeast Michigan Council of Government task force to plan for regional recreational improvements in the region. Both the director and deputy director attended a state recreation conference in Detroit, and our director presented at a workshop. A new smart van was purchased, and a new bus is supposed to be here in January. And if we're lucky with the cold, maybe it'll be outside, then it can drive us home. The department collected plastic lids for recycling, resulting in 23 new benches for our parks. Major operating controls were put in the ice rink, replacing 40-year-old equipment. The Michigan Works program for summer employment saved the city approximately $30,000 to $40,000. The department managed the lighted Christmas parade with the largest turnout in its history. Erin Shriver in our basketball program was named Miss Basketball by the Pistons and recognized at the annual Detroit Pistons Academy Awards held at Little Caesars Arena. The Allen Park Sports Hall of Fame inducted John Brithany, Dave Boomer, and Andy Weidenbach. A banning page was put in the community center gym and rents by the hour. A fitness center at the community center reached 1,000 members this year, where it was at 60 4 years ago. Millward Rotary Park baseball field was fenced for older players 16 and up. The city of Woodhaven continues to allow us to use their dog park at their citizens' rates in exchange for excuse me, in exchange for us allowing access to our fitness center at our citizens' rates for the citizens of Woodhaven. Lastly, the Allen Park Citizens Civic Fund, or APCCF, obtained a grant of $25,000 for outdoor play equipment at our pocket park located at White and Allen. and installation should be in the early part of the spring. Our library, a busy place. Every month, myself and the council get a 2-page report on all the activities and events taking place. They are too numerous to go through tonight. We normally don't even give them out to all of you at our council meetings, or the meetings in those meetings, and this meeting would probably be twice as long as it will be. So I urge all of you, go online, see what is available to you, and maybe there's something that you didn't realize we were providing there. My term is up in November, and I hope in my time after that may be a little freer, and I can go there. They have computer services, and everybody knows at City Hall, they run when they see me because they know something I've done dumb on my computer and I need help. So maybe the library will get the old mayor as somebody they have to take care of. Or I can find a book club to join. Since I was 12 years old, our library's really been special. Excuse me. I think of all the librarians I've known who have passed on that helped me so much to get where I'm going. Kind of silly, I guess, to think about them at this point, but they were important. The library has many recent physical improvements: landscaping, parking lot, new LED lighting, an online catalog. We are now part of the library network, as well as having Library of Michigan update of our databases. 2019, we intend to upgrade the assistant librarian or deputy to full-time position. For some reason, the EMU downgraded this to part-time during her term here, even though the library is on its own millage and budget. They're going to put in a new HVAC system. The one currently there was put in when the library was built in 1962. And we will continue to provide quality library services and stay within our budget. The Historical Commission are the people who maintain the historical house, which was the Backhouse family house built in 1888. The commissioners act as docents at Saturday evening or Saturday afternoon when the place is open for us visitors. And they put on a number of events: Pets and Petal Flower Sale, Ghostbusters and S'more, Garage Sale, Christmas in the Museum. This year I was able to go to the see the Christmas exhibit, and it was really beautifully done. Refreshments were great. The docents were helpful explaining what we were seeing and where it came from. Physical improvements were HVAC, hot water tank. Evidently in 1890, the house didn't have an HVAC or water tank. Can't understand that. But in 2019, we're going to do a new roof, porches front, and front and backyard improvements. The commission has joined the Downriver Historical Organization to work with other museums. In 2019, we'll see a new display featuring Allen Park's history as well as that of the Backhouse family. And they're going to establish a Friends of the Museum and a 5-year plan. Lastly, but not least, is the Downtown Development Authority, or DDA, is there to strengthen and improve the commercial district in our city. They are active in promoting Allen Park with downtown events from June to October, and some of these are Pansies and Pets, the Car Show, Farmers Market, Touch a Truck, Made in Michigan, Scarecrow Fest, and Trunk or Treat. And we've had over 20,000 people attend in 2018. Last year, they redid the pocket park plantings as well as the Ecorse Road bioswales. They've provided facade grants to 5 businesses in the city to improve their appearances, as well as design assistance to 4 other businesses for similar help. They've welcomed 18 new businesses to the district, the most ever entering our city. In 2019, we'll see streetlights retrofitted to LED saving money for the city and the DDA. developing a reserve for the next streetscape, which should be Allen Road from Roosevelt to Englewood. Redesign and launch a new website. Rework DDA operations to comply with the new state law governing DDAs, which became effective January 1st of this year. And they will work with the city on a new state law for redevelopment of liquor licenses from the state for appropriate businesses. And I hope you agree that it's been a busy 2018, and I assure you that 2019 will be equally active in improving services and, where appropriate, creating new ones. I'm really pleased at our progress and support from all our citizens. And at this time, I'd like to take questions. If you'd come forward to the mic so we can record and video, and thank you for coming out, and thank you for your patience. So, if there's anybody who has a question that I didn't cover or they're wondering about, it's a good time, and you don't even have a 4-minute limit. But if you go too long, I may leave, so. Is that on?
Okay. Hello, my name is Jim Jasek. Have you heard anything of what's going in the area where the Farmer Jack was, where Sears is?
No, I don't know that they have any project. In fact, they're currently before us requesting a reduction in their taxes, so I don't think they have anything planned.
Okay.
So. Well, that's correct, but that's across you'll see a bumper block along there that divides Allen Park and Lincoln Park. We did at one time, when I first came in as mayor, thought we were going to have a joint project in that site, Lincoln Park and Allen Park, but it did not work out. Mr. Lampert, who is the largest investor in Sears, and Grand Saco had a lawsuit. Grand Saco did not prevail, so that project got dropped. Is there anybody else?
You mentioned that you wanted
I just state that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sue Sutchda, Downriver Sunday Times.
Okay.
You've never seen me before, right? You mentioned that when the economy goes through a recession and property values are lower, that it decreases the operating revenue of the city.
Right.
Wouldn't it likely affect homeowners, though? Wouldn't they be affected by a recession, and if they were experiencing a decrease in their resources, it would be difficult for them to maintain the same standard of tax base? Would that not be a mitigating consideration?
Well, that was clearly what they were thinking when they passed Prop A and Headley. But the problem is, most of the people in 2008 and 9 did not come nearly close to suffering a 35% loss in their income. The municipalities in Wayne County suffered well over 35% drop in valuation, and we can only go back up at the rate of the consumer price index. And as I said, when you watch, we're down at 35%. Now, after 10 years, of the 35%, we've only recovered 1/3 of that. If the citizens hadn't come forward and doubled the millage that they were levying on themselves, Allen Park could never have recovered the way it has. The citizens realized that if they wanted the services they wanted, and they wanted them in as timely a fashion, then the revenue that we have is the revenue that we need. You would not have seen us be able to provide salting of roads that Saturday night, and it takes about 4 hours to fix a water main break. So there were 7 that night. That's 28 hours. I've got 16 people. It takes at least 4 persons, and we had 7 people working salting the streets of the city. So you can see that you could not reduce that force. That force in the department was down to, forgive me, Tom, was it about 12 at one point? Yes. It was 33%, 35%. Remember what I was talking about?
What caused the drop in evaluation? I mean,
It dropped from 1,150 million taxable to about 630 million taxable.
Now, how did that evaluation drop? Was that a state agency?
No, that's just what the price of homes were falling, and so that's
on the
how
market rate of the homes that were selling?
that's what we had to do, is revalue all the homes at a substantially lower rate, and therefore a lower tax was being generated on the properties in the city.
Are you hoping for federal money to help fix that infrastructure so you're not constantly doing Band-Aid fixes on the water main breaks? I know the pressure regulators will help to a certain extent on the water pipe breakage, but are you hoping for any federal infusion of funds for infrastructure?
Well, personally, I just hope they stay open and stay in business. We haven't seen anything at our state meetings, and I haven't heard anything from our congresswoman saying that they feel that there's going to be a lot of additional funds. I know we all talk about infrastructure, and one of the problems with infrastructure is, just like us, is we're getting ready to do our streets and that. The engineering for that has to take place now. It has to take place about 4 to 5 months in advance, and believe it or not, the work just getting ready for all that work, the engineering and whatnot, costs about 25% of the total cost of the work. And so when the governments talk about trying to be ready, I don't know what that means. I'm not going to take and recommend we spend Allen Park's money engineering a bunch of things if I don't know the government's going to give me the money. I'm just going to put a bunch of plans on the shelf.
If you don't have shovel-ready projects, you're not going to get any of those grants that require that. So it's kind of it is a crapshoot, right?
But nobody's going to get all their grants. So the question is, what makes the most compelling grant, you know? And so unless the government's a lot more specific than what they've been, I don't think most municipalities are going to be able to react in a meaningful way. So I just think that's the unfortunate part of what they're talking about. And a lot of times what you're hearing is that the federal government's infrastructure is going to be for their roads, their airports, and those are important to us. I'm not saying that. Just as the state spends a lot of its money fixing the potholes and that on the state roads, you know, that's their primary obligations, our state highways, and we have several thousand miles of them. So my concern is the 100 miles of roads and streets in Allen Park. Okay?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening. Dennis Rant. Only thing I'd like to comment on is your leadership. We'd like to thank you as a community for your expertise and your leadership through these very trying times for the City of Allen Park.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you.
The only comment I have to say.
He was sitting next to my wife, and she pushed him up there. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Well, again, thank you all for coming out. I appreciate it. I hope the summary was helpful and you learned something maybe about the city that you didn't. I know there are a lot of you here from the city and know a lot more about it than I do because you work with it many more hours a day than I do. So have a good evening and be careful out there. It's cold.